Hello, my name's Corey Snyder and I'm the Sales Director at SeeWhy Financial Learning. Here at SeeWhy Learning, our mission is simple: to help our students prepare for many of the exams in the financial services industry. My background is as a securities and life insurance trainer, and in that capacity, I've had a hand in developing many of the study tools available at SeeWhyLearning.com. Now, I truly believe that SeeWhy Learning offers the most effective exam preparation materials in Canada, in part because we've gone to great lengths to make them sound nothing like a traditional textbook that you might receive from a course provider. In fact, we like to call our study guides the anti-textbooks. This is why SeeWhy Learning's content writers are trainers, first and foremost. In fact, when developing study tools, our trainers are given strict instructions by our Director of Training. Whenever possible, write like you talk. Make sure that whatever words you'd use when teaching a student face-to-face are the same words that you write when creating a study guide, a flashcard, or a practice question. As you work with our tools, you'll find that our trainers have sprinkled numerous helpful tips, study strategies, and even suggestions for exam day. So with this in mind, I asked some of our trainers to present one or two of their favorite pieces of advice, and we've put them together here for you in this video called Top 10 Trainer Tips. I hope you find these tips will give you less stress and more success on exam day. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Andre, and my first tip is don't procrastinate. Invest in SeeWhy today and book your exam. At SeeWhy Learning, we support over 25 different exams. With the exception of a few advanced courses, the ideal preparation time is 30 to 60 days. So why do you hear students taking 6 months or even longer? The reason is many students tend to spin their wheels for months on end. For example, they start studying, life gets busy, they don't study for a few weeks, and when they finally get back at it, they've forgotten much of what they've learned and are essentially starting over. In fact, after analyzing thousands of student profiles, we have come to the following conclusion. Passing or failing usually comes down to what the student did in the 30 days leading up to the exam. So our advice is simple. Don't spin your wheels. Number 1, invest in yourself by investing in SeeWhy. And number 2, book your exam today for 30 to 60 days from now. This will help deter you from procrastinating because with each passing day, you know exam day is getting closer. My second tip focuses on how to prepare the last 2 weeks of study. Stop reading the textbook or even the SeeWhy Learning Study Guide. The reason for this is if you already read that material once or twice, it's unlikely you're going to pick up something new by reading it a third time. It's kind of like trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's really hard to do. Instead, I want you to take out your textbook and even your SeeWhy Learning Study Guide, and in big bold letters, I want you to write the word dictionary on the front cover. Now, why is that? Well, think about how people use a dictionary, because at this point in your studies, this is really what your textbook or study guide is. Nobody reads a dictionary from front to back, unless maybe they're trying to become a Scrabble champion. People use a dictionary to look up a specific piece of information. And at this point in your studies, that is really what your study guide is. So what should you be doing? Well, focus only on what you don't know. Now you're probably wondering, well, how do I know what I don't know? The answer is you want to do lots of practice questions. In other words, you will do a question, read the answer key. Hopefully if you got it wrong, the light bulb goes on for you. But if not, that's when you're going to pull out your dictionary and learn that one concept that you now know you don't know. In other words, doing tons of practice questions and learning what you get wrong is going to be more effective than randomly going through the textbook to try and find a new piece of information. Now, if you're working with the SeeWhy Learning practice questions, you'll find we give you a detailed explanation after each and every question. We don't give you 100 and then give you an answer key. We give you feedback along the way. The idea being, if you get a question wrong, we want you to know now, and we want to correct that learning immediately.
Hi everybody, my name is Neetu. My first tip is what to do on exam day. To use an analogy, think of a hockey team in the Stanley Cup Finals on game day. Now, would the coach put the team through a grueling practice on game day? Or would it be more productive for the team to rest, get mentally prepared, and build its confidence? Obviously the latter. The same holds true for you on exam day. Now let's face it, at this point, you know what you know, and it's unlikely that any further studying will be of any benefit. In fact, it could even be counterproductive. You want to go into the exam feeling well rested, not tired from a hard day studying. Also, if you stumble upon a concept that you don't know, this could cause you to panic, thereby negatively impacting your performance on the exam. So instead, I recommend that you don't study at all on exam day. Now, if you insist on studying, then don't focus on learning new content. Instead, review something that you already know quite well in order to build your confidence before going into the exam. It's also important that you get mentally prepared. Perhaps that means a light lunch with a good friend. Do whatever it is that helps you to mentally prepare. This is important because I hear far too often from students coming out of an exam that they were tired, that they hit a wall, and that they were drained. I rarely hear anyone say, "Gee, I'm sure glad I studied on exam day. It really made the difference." I also recommend that you get to the exam nice and early. Even if you know the specific location, even if you've been there a million times, get there nice and early. The last thing you want to do is to feel stressed on the way to the exam. Even if you do get there on time, if you are stressed the whole way getting there, that's no way to start an exam. Now, you might already be feeling nervous going into the exam, so instead, plan ahead and get there early. My second tip is, if you're a nervous exam taker, sit near the front of the room. Do you think a student would perform better on the exam if he or she was writing it in the comfort of their own home or in a stressful exam environment? I think most of you would agree that students would perform better on the exam if they wrote at home. So as much as possible, you want to try to mimic the study environment that you have at home during the actual exam. For example, when you were studying at home, if you looked up from your desk, did you see 30 people sitting in front of you? Probably not. So if you're a nervous exam writer, it's a good idea to sit near the front of the room. When you look up, you won't see a bunch of heads in front of you, which can be intimidating for even the most seasoned exam writer. Also, if you're in the front row, you are less likely to be distracted by students that leave the exam early, which could further add to your nervousness. Heck, they could be leaving early because they're writing a completely different exam, or perhaps they didn't know as many answers as you do. In any event, I find that sitting in the front row really helps reduce my stress levels, and I think doing so might just work for you too.
Hi, Corey here again. As I mentioned, I'm also a trainer. My first tip is to do a 2-minute brain dump. Have you ever known something like the back of your hand, but the moment you were asked for it, your mind went blank? It happened to me just the other day. Somebody asked me for my father's phone number, which hasn't changed since I was in grade 2. I must have called that number 1,000 times over the years. But the moment I was asked for it, I kind of froze. I just couldn't recall it. And I don't want something like that to happen to you on exam day. At SeeWhy Learning, we believe that the first 2 minutes of your exam is the most critical. So we recommend doing a 2-minute brain dump. The moment the exam starts, even before reading the first question, flip your exam over and jot down some of the things that you're worried about forgetting, or even some of the memory aids that you want to have handy. Of course, this list is going to be different for everybody. It's really important, though, that you think through your brain dump and practice writing it out before exam day. If you practice, you'll be surprised by how much information you can jot down in just a couple of minutes. Now, I do need to stress something here. Make sure you do your brain dump on the paper that the exam proctor gave to you so it's obvious you didn't bring it into the exam with you. My next tip is to create a roadmap. Have you ever been in an exam and heard the proctor yell out, "Time's half up," and you look down and you're way behind? Or even worse, he says, 2 minutes left, and you're nowhere close to being done? Well, you might think, that's not going to happen to me. But in reality, a stressful environment can make it so easy to lose track of time. So in order to prevent that from happening, I recommend creating a roadmap. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's assume your exam starts at 9 a.m. It's a 100-question exam, and you have 2 hours to complete it. In other words, if you do the math, you've got half hour for every 25 questions. Well, when the exam starts, go to question 25 and write down 9:30. Go to question 50 and write down 10 o'clock, and go to question 75 and write down 10:30. Now when you get to question 25 and see 9:30 written down, it will almost force you to look at your watch and gauge your progress. If it's 9:25, perfect. You can relax a little bit, you're ahead of schedule. But if it's 9:40, you're behind. But the good news is it's still early. You've got time to play catch up. It's as though I'm there as your trainer, tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, you were supposed to be here by 9:30. How you doing? I'm actually going to take it a step further and recommend you break up the first 15 minutes too. Go to question 13 and write down 9:15. Now, when you get there, I expect you'll be behind because how many students want to get the first question wrong or the second question wrong? Nobody, right? Everybody wants to get the exam started on the right foot. The point is, most students are way too cautious at the beginning of the exam. They may be pretty sure they know the answer, but they just keep thinking about it and thinking about it. On the other hand, if they have no idea what the answer is, they just sit and stare and hope the answer magically appears. It's obviously not going to happen. So by creating a roadmap, you'll give yourself checkpoints, which will act as the proverbial kick in the behind to hold yourself accountable to time.
Hi, my name is Jason. My first tip is go in chronological order and guess if you don't know the answer. So you've mapped out your exam as we discussed in a prior tip. What do you do when you reach a question where you don't know the answer or trying to figure it out will chew up valuable exam time and you'd rather spend that time on easier questions? We recommend you go in chronological order. In other words, go in order of the exam. Now there are two important reasons for this. First, if it's a paper-based exam, you enter your answers on a Scantron sheet. If you skip answers, it could cause you to misalign your answers, which could be disastrous. For example, if you skip question number 9, you could accidentally put your answer to number 10 in that spot. Secondly, if you're skipping questions, then it becomes difficult to gauge your time. For example, if half of your time is up, you're only halfway through, then that's really meaningless information if you skipped a bunch of questions. Now, if you don't know an answer, that's fine. Make your best guess and move on. This way, you can't misalign your answers and you still have a 25% shot at getting the mark. However, this next point is critical. I recommend you put a G for guessed beside the question on your answer booklet, or if it's a computer-based exam, then flag it if possible. This way, if you have time remaining at the end of the exam, you can always go back and re-tackle the questions that you guessed at. For my second tip, I'm going to give you the most important acronym in all of your studies, RTQF. RTQF stands for Read the Question First. Let me explain. If you look to the side of me, you're going to see a fairly lengthy question. Now, we've blurred out the actual words because this tip, and for that matter, all of the others, are really general in nature and can be applied to any multiple choice exam. Typically, a student starts reading from the top of the page or question because that's what they've done their entire life. They'll then circle or underline a bunch of things that they think might be relevant, get to the end, and realize what the question is actually asking, and finally need to go back and identify what is truly relevant. What a waste of time, right? And don't kid yourself. Authors of multiple choice questions can be really tricky. Trust me, I'm one of them. Distractors are often placed earlier in the scenario to try and lead the student down the wrong path. So how can you combat this? Well, find the question mark and RTQF. Read the question first. Now that you know what the question is actually asking you, start reading from the beginning and only circle what you now know for sure is relevant. This will also make it less likely that you're going to fall for distractors that are purposely placed in the question.
At SeeWhy Learning, our goal is to help you understand the course content so well that you don't find yourself guessing on any questions during your exams. That being said, we also want to teach you how to write a smart exam and fight for every single mark. So what if you reach a question where you have absolutely no idea what the answer is? In other words, you can't even eliminate a single answer choice. Well, at this point, you're basically throwing a dart at a dartboard, and generally speaking, you only have about a 25% chance of getting the mark. So I'm going to give you 3 tips about effective guessing, but look, there's no real science here. These tips are just based on our experience as trainers. So let's talk about how you can increase your odds to help you correctly answer those questions that really drive you up the wall. Tip number 1. If you're randomly guessing, go with C. With a multiple choice question, there are typically 4 potential answers, being A through D. If the order of answer choices are placed randomly, then each answer has a 25% chance of being correct. But in an actual exam, that isn't always the case. The author of a creative question might purposely place nice, tempting, but wrong answers in the A or B spot a little more often. Now, if this theory is true, then A might be right 24% of the time, B might be right 24% of the time, and C and D might be right 26% of the time. So again, if it's a guess, go with C. It could improve your odds even just a little bit. Tip number 2. If taking a complete guess, stay away from the really long answer. This goes back to a saying my mom always used to use when I found myself in trouble and was trying to dig my way out. She'd say, "Son, it takes more words to tell a lie." So what really happened? The same holds true when trying to create a realistic, tempting, plausible wrong answer. It sometimes takes more words to make it sound more believable. In other words, the author is really trying to sell the answer to you. So if it's a random guess, stay away from the really long answer, as it could be a lie. Tip number 3, tackling combination type questions. If you look to the side of me, you will see a rather silly combination style multiple choice question. Don't worry about the content, just focus on the strategy itself. Which of the following is true of trainer Josh? That's me. Number 1, he was born in Toronto, Canada. Number 2, he is 7 foot and 3 inches in height. Number 3, he's wearing a red shirt. And number 4, he forgot his dress shoes today and he's wearing flip-flops. You have to choose one of the 4 combination answers, A through D, that you see on the screen. Now you may be thinking, how the heck do I know? Well, with these type of questions, the best thing to do is to ask yourself, well, what do I know? Pick the statement that you're most confident is either correct or incorrect and work from there. Number 1, was I born in Toronto, Canada? Maybe. Number 2, am I 7 foot 3 inches in height? Doubtful. Number 3, am I wearing a red shirt? Definitely not. And number 4, am I wearing flip-flops? Maybe. So which statement are we most confident about? Well, we know that number 3 is definitely false. Knowing this one piece of information lets us eliminate answers A and B. So we've increased our odds of correctly guessing the right answer to 50%. Now, depending upon the question, this strategy may help to eliminate 1 or 2 of the answers, or if you're lucky, maybe even 3. So you might be thinking that this is an obvious tip, right? Well, in a stressful exam where the answer choices could be very similar, it's surprising how many students forget to use this technique. Oh, and since you guessed, don't forget to flag the question for later, just in case you have time remaining and want to go back and think through it some more.
So, you've mapped out your exam, you've gone in chronological order, you guessed on a few but flagged them, went back and double-checked those questions, and you're done with, say, 20 minutes to spare. What are you going to do now? Well, don't leave early. Ask yourself how you would feel if you failed by just 1 mark. You would kick yourself thinking, maybe I could have found 1 mark if I stayed. Start at the beginning and reattempt each question. What you're looking for are those questions where you made a silly mistake. A mistake that would make you slap your forehead and say, how the heck did I miss that? Or what was I thinking? Maybe you missed the word except or the word not, or made a simple math error and therefore changing the answer gets you another mark. Now, maybe you waste 20 minutes and find nothing. That isn't a bad thing. It means you went through a bunch of questions and felt pretty good about your answers. If nothing else, waiting for your exam result might be a little less stressful. Now, be careful. Tip number 10 comes with a very important warning. You know yourself certainly better than I do. Keep in mind that you're looking for silly, obvious mistakes, not to second guess yourself. For example, if you selected answer A and for some reason now you like answer B, do not change your answer. The old saying, your gut never lies, bears some truth, which is why the first answer is usually your best answer. Unless you know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that you answered it wrong the first time, do not change it. I like to use this example. Imagine you're reviewing a question that asks, what is 2 plus 2? And you circled the answer 3. Well, that would be one of those, what was I thinking moments? Erase your answer and put in the correct answer of 4. That is the type of certainty you need to have if you're going to change your answer on a test. So, if you're the type of person that will second guess yourself, then ignore tip number 10. Get out of the exam and call it a day.